You're listening to The Spooky Darlings, where three sisters like to chat about anything we might find interesting or intriguing. And I'm Haley.
I'm Nettie.
I'm Emily.
And Nettie, you are telling us something today.
I am telling you something today. Had a few ideas about what I wanted to do this week, and then I finally settled on this one, and I'm very glad I did. So I'm gonna take you to Jacksonville, Florida, and it's the morning of May 7th, the year 2000. And there is a bolo released, be on the lookout for, around 8 a.m. in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier, released by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And it says, be on the lookout for a young African-American male, approximately 20 to 25 years old, skinny build, over 6 feet tall, wearing dark shorts, an unknown color shirt, and a fishing hat. Mm-hmm. So all of the cops and detectives are on the lookout. Meanwhile, that same morning, Brenton Butler, 15 years old, was just a kid being a kid. He woke up, he took a shower, brushed his teeth. He saw his mom and his little brother. He took care of his dog. And he had a plan for the day because he was going to walk about 2.5 miles to the Blockbuster Video and get a job application. He was just a 15-year-old kid trying to be responsible, comes from a really nice family with a family that owns their own home. But
And he went and got a job at Blockbuster and lived a really good life?
Yes, Haley. The end.
Oh, no.
He had no idea that within the course of a couple of hours, his life would be completely turned upside down in a way that I can't even imagine. I don't think any of us can imagine.
Oh, no.
Somewhere between 7:25 and 7:35 that morning, while Brenton was still at home with his family going about his Sunday, 2 tourists from Georgia named James and Marianne Stevens, and they're a married couple, were walking back to their room at the Ramada Inn in Jacksonville, Florida, after having had breakfast. And so there's a breezeway in front of them. And this is like an outdoor breezeway where the hotel rooms are to the right, parking lot to the left. And as they're walking, James would recount later that about 100 to 150 feet in front of him, he sees an African-American male walking towards them, and he didn't think anything of it. Then he said just a few seconds later, suddenly a man jumps in front of them with a gun. He said it is the same man. And he demands Marianne's purse and is holding a gun about 18 inches from her face. She begins to slide the purse off of her shoulder when suddenly the gun fired. The bullet entered Marianne's face right at the bridge of her nose, just to the left of her, or just to the side of her left eye. And she was instantly killed. 90 minutes later, Brenton Butler was arrested. So now I'm going to tell you about Officer Martin. Officer Martin, and this is what I noticed about him in the documentary, is immediately he's shifty-eyed. When he's being questioned by the defense counsel, his eyes are shifting left and right, and I immediately thought, he knows something's wrong with how he handled situations.
He's a liar.
He's a liar. He knows that things were not on the up and up. That was my first instinct.
You have good instincts, Nettie.
Thank you, Haley. I agree. So, Officer Martin is on the radio with another officer, and they're talking about the bolo, when Officer Martin sees young Brenton Butler walking towards him. And so they know that they're on the lookout for a young black male, 20 to 25 years old, over 6 feet tall, skinny build, skinny legs in particular, wearing dark shorts and a plain T-shirt, unknown color, but plain.
Okay.
Fishing hat. But mostly he focuses on 2 words, black male. So he says to his other officer, oh, here's one now. Could be him, could be anybody. That was enough. So Martin says, I'm going to go talk to him. He approaches Brenton, and he tells the child that there was a shooting nearby and asks Brenton if he knows anything about it. And Brenton says, no, sir. And then Officer Martin says, well, I think you might be able to help us. Would you mind coming with me and talking to detectives? To which this obedient, hopeful 15-year-old
no.
kid said, yes, sir, I wouldn't mind. And he gets in the back of the police car with Officer Martin, where Officer Martin drives him, I think about 2.5 miles to the Ramada Inn.
It's so tragic because so often I think African-American families tell their sons, like, comply, 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 because there's often violence attached to any sort of perceived defiance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
respect authority.
Yeah, but I think especially being a young Black kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sad.
Yeah, I just, like, I know that we've talked about this before, but always ask for a lawyer, and then always just tell your kids, make sure you say, I am underage. I would like my parent with me. I would like a lawyer.
Right.
As well.
And really ask yourself, why would the police need my help?
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to do with this. I already told him I didn't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And in any situation, too, like, you see this, like, those lawyers that are on Instagram that are like, if the police ever knock on your door and ask you questions, just keep your mouth shut. Even if you don't know what they're asking for, just keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. Do not invite the police in, and don't step out of your home because...
Yeah,
I forgot what that is, but they can, like, they can arrest you if you, like, step out of your home. So that's why you want to stay in your home, but do not invite them in. It's vampire rules.
Vampire rules with police. That's true.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you what happens next, okay?
Okay.
So...
Sorry, Nettie, thank you.
You're fine. Brenton's in the back of the car. They drive to the Ramada Inn, and Officer Martin radios over to some other officers. And Brenton is a little bit confused. He's like, I don't really know what they need my help with. So he just remains seated in the back of the police car. And from Brenton's point of view, he sees other officers bringing an older, elderly white man towards them. And about 50 feet away, they stop. And what was happening is the officer said, hey, we picked up a Black man walking around. Can you come and take a look and tell us if this is the guy? James, and I want to point out, James is not super sympathetic in this documentary. He's not like a super likable person, but he had just been through like minutes before. I mean, this is it within half an hour of him watching his wife being killed in front of him in what had to have been like an adrenaline-filled moment where he's taking in information. And I don't necessarily think that James Stevens is a liar. I just think that no one took into account how hard it is to identify people of other races, first of all, and I'll talk more about that later, and also how difficult it is to recall certain events when you're actually in the middle of the traumatic event.
Yes. And as we know, eyewitness accounts are famously unreliable.
And this was 50 feet away through a glass window, I assume.
50 feet away, the door was open to the car.
The door was open.
Listen.
Okay.
Because he doubles down.
Okay.
So 50 feet away, the officers say, we've got this kid. Is this the kid? Now, meanwhile, Brenton is not dressed how the shooter was dressed. He's wearing different pants. He's wearing a dark-colored T-shirt that has a very large Nautica logo on it. And he's not wearing a hat. And he's wearing glasses. Brenton always wore glasses. He could not see without his glasses. The shooter was not wearing glasses. That was never in the report. James says, yes, that's the man that shot my wife. And the officers were a little surprised, actually. They were kind of like, oh, did we literally just pick up the shooter? Do we get that lucky? And they were kind of looking at each other, kind of like, seriously, is this going to be this easy? And they said, are you sure? Why don't you come take a closer look? James Stevens comes, sits in the back seat of the car with Brenton Butler and states again, yes, I am sure this is the man. The officers say, are you 100% certain? James Stevens says, I would not send an innocent man to jail. This is the man that killed my wife.
Oh, no.
Oh.
And how old is this man?
He's in his 70s, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe 60s, maybe a rough 60s. I never really quite got the age, but I would think 70s just by looking at him. Really sad. I mean, terrible, terrible, awful. But
yeah, what he's just been through is crazy.
Well, and you'll hear more and more evidence, and you'll kind of wonder, how can these people... It makes me think of the Karen Reed trial. Like, how can John O'Keefe's family actually think Karen Reed had anything to do with it, looking at the evidence. And that's kind of how I felt about
Mhm.
this, is how could James Stevens be so sure it was this kid? And I honestly think that part of it is he has to be sure because he can't have lost his wife and sent an innocent
And ruined someone
kid.
else's life.
Like, that would be too much for him to accept. That's kind of what I don't know where I come from. But anyways,
Yeah.
let me finish telling you the story.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to introduce you to the lawyers. We've got Anne Fennell. She's a public defender. And we've got Patrick McGinnis. And these two are heroes. They're amazing.
Okay.
They are people. Sometimes when we think of public defenders, we think overworked, way too much on their payload.
Mhm.
They might not have the bandwidth to do the best they can for their clients. It's simply not the case with these two. They were amazing. And even before this case, they had reputations of being just really, really, really good at their job.
Seeking justice.
And yeah, like the cops did not want to have to go up against Patrick McGinnis or Anne Fennell because they knew that they were going to be questioned. No one was going to be doing them any favors.
Uh-huh.
So Anne Fennell questions Officer Martin, the one that picked up Brenton Butler. And, just is asking, okay, so you picked him up. Now tell me why. And Martin's like, well, I'd just gotten the bolo that we were looking for a black male. And I said, oh, here's one now. He explains it.
Okay.
His whole reasoning was, well, I picked him up because he was black. So Anne asks again. So just to be clear, like the whole reason Brenton Butler was picked up is because he was a black male walking in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's a quote from her. Officer Martin came in and candidly admitted that the only reason Brenton Butler was even stopped that morning was because he happened to be a black male walking in the neighborhood. Now think about that. That means for every African American in Jacksonville, Florida, if they happen to be walking down the street, lawfully going about their business, not doing anything wrong, that they are subject to being stopped and asked to get in the police car and driven away from what they were doing, and subject to being shown to the victim of a crime with the possibility that that victim would identify them under the most suggestive of circumstances, that being that they happen to be sitting in the back seat of a police car. And most victims would think that they wouldn't be sitting in the back seat of a police car unless they've done something wrong, right? So that's where we are today in Jacksonville, Florida, and I personally find that disgusting and reprehensible. And that was our first introduction to Anne Fennell.
I like her.
Me too. And she would later tell the jury, most people seeing someone in the back of a police car assume that person has done something wrong. The system had already decided.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about why do we know so much about this case? Because this is not uncommon. It's not an uncommon story that someone is picked up due to racial profiling. Just
Mhm.
because they need a suspect, they need someone so they can start their police work.
Yeah.
But the reason why we know so much about this particular case is because of a French documentary filmmaker named Jean-Xavier de Lestrade.
Mm.
Now, does his name sound familiar?
No.
Uh-huh.
Because he made another quite famous documentary that was this miniseries called The Staircase. And anyone who is into true crime knows the story of Michael Peterson, and Michael Peterson being accused of not one, but two murders that took place in staircases. And
oh my gosh.
so before The Staircase came to fame, the documentary called Murder on a Sunday Morning, which highlights the case of Brenton Butler, it's with a T, and his family calls him Brent, which is my husband's name. So Brenton Butler. Before The Staircase came to fame, this documentary actually won an Oscar. And it was the first true crime documentary that I had ever watched that was like a documentary and not just like a 30-minute ID investigates channel. Right. My husband and I watched it together, I would say like back in, I think the film came out in 2002 or 2003. Brent and I watched it together in like 2006 probably.
Okay.
And I just remember being blown away that this could happen, because I think at that time I still had a very romanticized view of the justice system,
Right.
and believed that cops were good, and believed that we had our justice system to find the truth. And watching this, it just made everything else that came after that, like Making a Murderer, Serial, like all of these other things where we just wonder about
motivations.
Yeah, and like the tactics cops use, all of that just seemed less shocking to me because I had watched this documentary. Also, as you guys might know, Murder or The Staircase is famously the documentary that brought our beloved Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark together. They met at a Halloween party and started talking about it and ended up isolating themselves like over by the punch bowl or over in the corner and talked about it the entire night. And then met for lunch like the next day or maybe like a little bit later.
I think it was the next day.
And they just kept talking. And then Georgia was like, this is good. This works. Should we just like start a podcast where we just tell each other about our favorite murders? And that is the birth of My Favorite Murder. And I was thinking about this when I was writing this up last night, that we probably wouldn't be sitting here podcasting if Jean-Xavier de Lestrade had not made this documentary, Murder on a Sunday Morning, which led to The Staircase. So it just kind of, it's funny how, like the chain of events, because I really feel like we wouldn't be doing this if Karen and Georgia hadn't done it and kind of inspired us to think like, well,
we're three sisters.
We could do this. Yeah.
We think we're funny.
Because we are.
Boy, do we.
All right. So now I'm going to take you into the prosecution of Brenton Butler, because even despite very little evidence, and you will get more frustrated as you hear more details.
Oh, no.
Very little evidence and virtually no investigation. The DA decided to go ahead and go forth and press charges.
No. Oh, my gosh. It's just that thing that happens all too often of they decide who did it and they try and make the evidence fit that rather than follow the evidence.
Well, the prosecutor's opening statement, and I don't remember her name, basically said, we have two things that without a doubt are going to prove Brenton Butler was the murderer of Marianne Stevens. One is we have an eyewitness account. James Stevens positively identified with 100% certainty that Brenton Butler was the shooter of his wife. Also, we have the confession of Brenton Butler.
No,
because
what did they do to him?
Oh, you're going to hear all about it. Brenton did sign a confession. Now I'm going to read to you Anne Fennell's statement. She's the defense attorney, along with Patrick McGinnis. The evidence in this case will show you that Brenton Butler did not commit this homicide and that, in fact, he could not have killed Mrs. Stevens on the morning of May 7th. At 12 noon, you will hear that Detectives William and Darnell began their questioning of Brenton Butler. They asked Brenton Butler where he was Saturday night and Sunday morning. Brenton said, on Sunday morning, I woke up, I took a shower, I brushed my teeth, I saw my mom and my little brother, I took care of my dog, and a little after 9, I left to go to Blockbuster to fill out a job application. And then the detectives told him, you're lying. We've got an eyewitness. Detective Glover arrived shortly after at the homicide office before 6 p.m., and he will tell you that he was told Brenton Butler was ready to confess. Ready to confess. Here's a boy who has said absolutely nothing, but it's not me. I didn't do this. And at 5:56, you will learn that Detective Glover entered the interview room alone to talk to Brenton Butler. And Detective Glover said, you're not innocent. You're not innocent. We've got an eyewitness. It's N-words like you that make me mad these days.
What?
And Detective Glover said, if I had done this, I'd have thrown that purse and gun in the woods. Isn't that what you did? Did you throw that gun and purse in the woods? And then Detective Glover takes Brenton Butler alone, handcuffed, hanging onto Brenton's belt, deep into the woods. And in the middle of those woods, in that semi-darkness, right before it gets totally dark, Detective Glover hit him in the stomach. Not once, but twice, and hit him in the face.
Oh, no.
And I want to tell you something about Detective Glover. He is a Black man. He is also the son of the sheriff of Jackson County. And interestingly, Detective Glover got promoted to homicide detective, when his father became sheriff. He brags about taking 5 different courses on interrogation, and the other officers refer to him as the interrogation expert.
Oh, no.
They bring him in, a former boxer. Detective Glover was a former boxer.
Stop it.
They bring him in when they can't get a witness to break.
Oh my gosh. This is so sickening.
I hate that.
It is. It's pretty sickening. So I want to talk a little bit about what's called the cross-race effect. And this is talking about eyewitness identification. And what the cross-race effect is it talks about how statistically people are best at identifying other faces within their own racial group. When white people try to identify Black people, they have a much harder time differentiating facial structure differences, like all these other things than a Black person would identifying another Black person.
Right.
Basically, white people feel like Black people look generally similar. Black people feel like white people look generally similar. And it's kind of the same, like in different racial groups. Like,
oh, yeah. Chiling. She told me, she's like, yeah, everybody at the high school just kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
When we had her as an exchange student.
Yeah, Chiling was our exchange
always
student.
Thought that was interesting.
She was our exchange student from Taiwan.
Yeah, she's Asian.
Do you remember when I met that man at the embassy in Malaysia who was applying for his American passport, but he was telling me all about his kung fu practice that he had, and I was like, "Oh, where are you from?" And he was like, "Well, I'm American, but can't you tell I'm Korean?" And I was like, "Oh," and I stopped myself. I was like, "Should I be able to tell this?" Like, I literally do not think I can tell that he's Korean. But it made me question myself. And it also made me think harder about what I recognize about Korean people versus Japanese people versus Chinese people. It did make me try to notice more, so I wouldn't be as ignorant. But it's tough.
Okay, so speaking of the cross-race effect, we have, it turns out he's 65. James Stephen, 65-year-old man from Georgia. He had just had a very brief but very terrifying adrenaline-filled encounter with a Black man. And then the very first person that's introduced to him as a possible suspect, he identifies as the shooter. He believed that picture that he saw the second time was the shooter. It's like you just you have a picture in your head, and then when you see the next thing, you bring them together into one, and he really believed that was the shooter. And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, really the big devastating problem with this is, why was he shown one suspect anyway? If they really believed Brenton Butler was a suspect, why wasn't it in a lineup?
I was going to ask, did they do a lineup?
They did not. They did no lineup.
And did they do ballistic? Did they check his fingers for residue? Nothing. Oh my gosh.
Nothing.
Oh,
the investigation was, is this the man? This is literally the investigation. Is this the man that shot your wife? Yes. Are you sure? Yeah. I'm sure I wouldn't send an innocent man to jail. That is as far as the investigation went.
And then they sent in Glover to
get to get him to break.
Poor kid.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. So we're going to now hear about James Stephen's testimony. And it's very sad. It's heartbreaking. His testimony does not add up. You listen to it and you're like, how can he actually believe what he's saying? But he takes the stand, and the prosecution is using him. He's the cornerstone of their case. His eyewitness account is what this entire case is built on, that and the coerced confession. So everything hinges on him. So they said, is the man that shot your wife in the courtroom? And he said, yes. And then he described it. And they said, could you point him out? And they said, he's sitting at that table. He's wearing a red shirt. He's wearing glasses. Not the same man. But this is what was craziest to me. While Anne Fennell was asking James Stevens about clothing, and Anne Fennell questioned the witnesses that needed more delicate kid gloves. She was very good, very sharp, but a little gentler. Patrick McGinnis questioned the asshole detectives and cops and crooked cops who needed to be schooled a little bit.
So they were a great team.
Oh, they were such a good team. So Stevens kept referring to the man that shot him as the original assailant, and to Brenton Butler as the other assailant, but then would say they were the same person. But even in his own mind, he could not say, when he would speak about it, there was a disconnect. He would say, they brought out the t-shirt, the Nautica t-shirt, and they said, was the man that shot you wearing this shirt? And he said, no, the original assailant wasn't wearing that shirt. But then when I saw this assailant later, he was wearing that shirt. I saw it on him in the back of the car, and he is the man that shot my wife.
What?
So he even, just the original assailant versus...
He's not even making sense to himself.
He's doing those like mental gymnastics to connect the dots for himself.
Absolutely.
Mental gymnastics, yeah.
Yeah. So side by side, original assailant, over 6 feet tall. Brenton, 5'10". Original assailant, 20 to 25 years old. Brenton, 15. Little baby.
Little baby.
Original assailant, skinny build. Brenton, stocky build. Original assailant, no logo on the shirt, black shorts that came right below the knee or dark colored shorts.
Mm-hmm.
A fishing cap. Brenton, Nautica logo on his navy shirt, clearly visible, no hat, glasses.
Just doesn't even match up.
Yeah, and Brenton didn't own a fishing hat. Did the detectives ever question his family on whether or not Brenton owned a fishing hat?
Oh my gosh.
No, the answer is no. But James Stevens still even after the trial, said that there was no doubt in his mind that Brenton Butler was the shooter.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of infuriating.
Dude.
So next day, 6:30 in the morning. So this is May 8th, I believe. There's another man named Mr. Stevens, and it's a completely different Mr. Stevens from the victim's husband. And this Mr. Stevens is a man who, amongst other jobs, collects cans for a living. So he was digging around in a dumpster, and he found a woman's pocketbook. He opened it up, saw the ID, and immediately called the police. He didn't go through the wallet. He turned it over to the police immediately. In the wallet was Marianne Stevens' identification, $1,200 in cash, untouched, still in the bag. So the prosecution wants the jury to believe that 15-year-old Brenton Butler somehow procured a gun that his family knew nothing about, wore an outfit that his family has never seen without his glasses when he really couldn't see without them, darted out of his house that morning, shot Marianne Stevens, got her purse and pocketbook, somehow came home, did not remove any of the cash. Now, mind you, when Brenton Butler was picked up, I believe he actually did have cash on him, but I don't remember what the amount was. But why would anyone? If his purpose was to get money, and by the way, he was on his way to get a job that morning. He was going to be getting money, and he didn't come from a destitute family. He came from parents who they weren't rich by any means. They worked hard and lived month to month, but they owned their home and they provided for their kids very well. Also, would you like to guess how far away this dumpster was from the crime scene?
Oh, geez.
9.5 miles. So they believe that somehow Brenton Butler, 15 years old with no car, walked 9.5 miles and ditched the purse.
With $1,200 in it?
With $1,200 in it, yes.
Quick question. What is the state of Mr. and Mrs. Stevens' marriage? Because who else saw this Black person shoot her?
I think there was one other woman. I don't think there was any question about Mr. Stevens and his guilt. And you'll hear more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. But I believe there was a witness, a woman who was incoherent that was across the parking lot that they didn't get any information from other than she was freaked out.
Okay.
So 9.5 miles. It was at least a 20-minute drive. Brenton didn't have a car. He was on foot. Also, the dumpster required the lid to be lifted by hand. So the surface would have been covered in fingerprints for anyone who had lifted it. Now, do you think the police ever went, this is the day after the murder, and processed it to see if Brenton Butler's fingerprints were there?
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. Do you know why? Because they knew that Brenton didn't do it. And they knew that if they went and processed fingerprints and didn't find them, it would just prove that they were correct. Brenton Butler didn't do it. And that
they
would
would
make
have
their
to do
jobs
more
harder.
work.
Yeah. And there's all this pressure, Jacksonville's this huge tourist place. There's all this pressure to make tourists feel safe. And in the article that was released the day after the murder that included a photo of Brenton Butler and his name at 15 years old.
He's underage.
They said, tourists don't need to worry. We have already caught the assailant. He will be tried as an adult. The day after.
This is so infuriating.
So insane. So insane.
It's crazy. So also, so this witness, the other Mr. Stevens, the can collecting Mr. Stevens, he said that after he gave the cop the pocketbook, that the cop came and found him again and said, hey, one of the detectives wants to talk to you. And so this Good Samaritan, Mr. Stevens, was approached by the detective, and the detective's opening words to him were, "Boy, where's the gun?" And so then Patrick McGinnis, because Patrick McGinnis is questioning this man in court at this point, says, he referred to you as boy? And Mr. Stevens, Good Samaritan Mr. Stevens, collecting can, Mr. Stevens said, yes, he referred to me as boy and accused me of taking the gun and keeping the gun. I didn't have a gun. I didn't see a gun in that dumpster. There wasn't a gun in that dumpster. And he was very indignant because he clearly is a good person. He turned over the purse.
Called it in.
With $1,200 in it.
Yeah.
He could have easily slipped that $1,200 out and still called the police and said, I found this purse. There wasn't any cash. I mean, I don't know if there's cash because I took it out.
And that's such a racially charged thing to call people, by the way. Like when you...
Mr. Stevens is white, but the officer still called him boy.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is in the South.
But it
is like a racially charged thing to call people. It's very like derogatory.
I think that it was meant derogatory toward Mr. Stevens because he was a person who didn't come from money and collected cans for a living and may have been homeless. I wasn't quite sure. But like a good man. Like,
yeah, that $1,200 would have like changed his whole month.
Okay, so here's the investigation. I already told you guys this, so you know what the answer is. Here's what the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office did after arresting Brenton Butler to investigate the case. They stopped investigating. They did nothing. They did not knock on any doors to see if neighbors had seen Brenton Butler leave that morning because they surmised that he left that morning, even though his mother insists she saw him, although they didn't call his mother and ask her if she saw him. Patrick McGinnis is the one that talked to the family.
Jeez.
Nobody checked with Blockbuster. There's two reports. One is saying he was on his way back from Blockbuster, and one was saying he was on his way to Blockbuster. But either way, nobody called Blockbuster to see if he stopped in. No search warrant was obtained for the Butler home, despite the police wanting to find the gun, the purse, bloody clothes, and money. If they believe, like what they said happened is that he went home and showered and changed his clothes, they would have gotten a search warrant.
Yeah.
If they actually believe that happened, they would have gotten a search warrant to try to find those things in his home. No fingerprints taken from the dumpster. No forensic evidence collected from the crime scene or from the pocketbook. No gun ever recovered. Detective Williams, who was the lead detective, conducted one thorough interview. Guess who of?
Mr. Stevens.
Brenton Butler. That was the only interview he said was thorough. He also said he tried to speak to a woman at the scene who was too emotional to speak. He did not interview James Stevens, the witness. He did not interview the witness. He did not contact Brenton's family because he believed, and they all believed, that what they had was enough. An eyewitness identification and
the confession.
A confession. So let me tell you a little bit more about Patrick McGinnis and Ann Fennell, the public defenders who basically did the police's job. So Patrick McGinnis admits that when he first heard about this case, he read the article. And his first reaction, and this was before he even knew he was going to be Brenton Butler's lawyer, his first reaction was, he had thrown away his own life as well as that of a tourist. So then he shows up to work and finds that he's assigned to the Brenton Butler case. And I want to say, talk about doing your job right. These two went the extra mile. McGinnis and Fennell, they went to work. They retraced the movements of the Stevenses the morning that Marianne was shot. They retraced the black man 100 to 150 feet, and then 2 seconds later, 2.5 feet in front of them, and basically brought into court that was an impossibility. It was an inaccuracy. Was it possible there were two different men? No, Mr. Stevens was sure it was one man. Did Mr. Stevens hear anyone running towards him? No. But there would be impossible to cross that distance without making some kind of noise, some kind of scuffle.
Yeah.
So the distances don't match.
Even if you're sprinting, too. I don't think you can be there in 2 seconds.
And let's just imagine for a minute that it was two different men. That means that Mr. Stevens has identified 3 different black men as the same black man.
Yeah.
So they built the physical case so they walked the breezeway, reconstructed the crime. They looked at sight lines. They did more investigation into crime than the police did collectively. Just the two of them. than the entire police force and detectives did collectively. Then they went and they spoke to Brenton's family, and his family confirmed. And I want to ask, because this is a question I had, why does Mr. Stevens' eyewitness account, someone who doesn't even know Brenton Butler, why does that have more weight than his little brother and his mother, who physically saw him that morning at the time of the shooting, and his father, who heard his voice and heard him?
And they see him every day.
Yeah, they knew he was there, but for some reason their eyewitness account has less weight than Mr. Stevens' eyewitness account, who...
Because then the police would have to walk back everything and start from scratch, and they didn't want to do it.
It's just nuts. I mean, I just don't... Like, the defense posed the question, if Brenton Butler was the shooter, he would have to put on the Nautica shirt, leave the house, change into a different logo-free T-shirt, commit the murder, go back home, change into the Nautica shirt, interact with his family, travel 9.5 miles on foot to dump the pocketbook, walk back to the neighborhood 2.5 miles from the hotel where Officer Martin spotted him, all on foot, all within the available window of time when the shooting happened at 7:30 and Brenton was picked up at 9. It's just like, it's illogical.
Yeah, it's impossible.
And why are they so hell-bent?
I mean, I can see too, like, while if you really think this person did it, then you would discount the family's testimony. I mean, I can see that for sure. Like, I understand what you're saying, that they would know him and identify him better than anybody. But if they did think truthfully that he did it, then I can see why they'd be like, yeah, of course you're going to
say that you saw your son. Yeah, people give alibis, false alibis all the time. That happens. But this is a really honest family. They don't strike me as liars. And their story never changed.
Yeah, I don't question it based on what we know. I guess I'm just saying, like, if for a second we believed that they actually thought that Brendan did it, which it doesn't sound like they really did. It sounds like they just wanted to be done.
I think that their lack of investigation almost proves to me that they knew he didn't do it.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to keep tootling along, making this kid guilty.
It's going to check this box.
Because if I investigate, I'll find too many holes and then I won't be able to prosecute. And we won't be able to have this clean and dry case.
And they'll have to start from square one because they botched it from the beginning.
Can you believe that there is a district attorney that would, like, agree to prosecute this with so little evidence, though? Like, that is insane, too.
I know. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I can't believe it.
It happens far too often.
Well, and Patrick McGinnis was so upset by the lack of evidence and just like this obvious miscarriage of justice that he actually took it to the state attorney's office. And the state attorney's office responded to him that politically they could not help. And it's because Sheriff Glover, Detective Glover's dad, was so popular because he was the first Black sheriff to ever be elected to Jacksonville. That was like this big political move where they felt like they couldn't do anything to like shade Sheriff Glover's reputation. And the thing is I actually think that probably for the most part, Sheriff Glover was a good man, but his son was not. His son was a complete Nepo baby.
I just and we call it the justice system. So there should be justice. Like, I mean, you guys know what I'm saying. It's just so frustrating.
It is.
So there's a really sweet part in the documentary that's heartbreaking, and it's where it shows Brenton Butler's parents coming to see him, and his dad is just like from memory giving him all the football scores. Like the Raiders won by such and such amount, and the other football team won by another amount, and he's like telling him all of the football scores, and his mom's just sitting there just trying to come up with anything to tell him about how her birthday's coming up, but the best birthday present would be if he got free. And then you can see she's trying to contain her emotions. And this is just like where it really hit me, watching these parents interact with him through the glass. And I just was like, that kid is my son's age. And if I had that glass between us where I couldn't even hold him, couldn't even hug him, and had like this short period of time where I was allowed to sit there and talk to him face to face, but with a divider between us, I don't know how these parents, they handled it with so much grace. They were so lovely. He was just so young and innocent.
Yeah.
And you're just brought up to think that these grown men and people in these leadership positions are there to protect and help you.
Yeah.
And,
but sometimes they just want to check that box, and so they'll make anything fit.
Yeah. Well, and as we're learning so much, like from this Karen Reed trial, they are often super racist. Like these
Super.
texts that have come out, and we'll probably talk about this in the FUF episode, but
With
all
Proctor.
these texts that have come out with Michael Proctor and that other detective that quit, where they are flat out calling.
Good, right? It was Proctor and Good.
Yeah. Calling, I mean, it's relevant. It's like, I'm just surprised at the rampant racism that exists.
Having the kill an N-word day or something like that.
Holy cow, or don't hurry. There's an accident, but don't hurry. It looks like there's N-word in the car.
Oh, so take your time.
Take your time. Yeah.
That's so
and
evil.
referring to all women as the C words, all of them.
It's so evil.
Mm-hmm.
That I just I can't imagine living with that much hate in your heart.
So gross.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to talk to you about Michael Glover.
Mm-hmm.
He is the son of Sheriff Nat Glover, who I like to refer to as the Nepo baby with a badge. So Sheriff Nat Glover was the most powerful law enforcement officer in Jacksonville. Michael Glover became a homicide detective in 1995, which is the same year his father was elected sheriff, which I think I already told you. He was a former college football lineman. He was 5'11", 240 pounds. So he's not a super tall man, but he's a large man. And he was a boxer, and he knew how to hit people.
Ugh.
By the time Glover got involved, other detectives had been questioning poor Brenton by himself all day. His family didn't even know where he was.
Oh, that's
all
terrifying.
day, his mom was calling her sister, friends, saying, "Have you heard from Brenton? This isn't like him." Like, they didn't even know where he was all day.
Isn't that illegal, though?
It is now, Haley. And I will talk about that. So,
oh my gosh.
Glover shows up, and Williams and Darnell, who had been questioning Brenton, said he's ready to confess. So Glover went in, and he a lot of pride. He's expecting like a quick finish. He's expecting to go in and just get this done. And what he found instead was like a very tired, hungry, frightened 15-year-old who still insisted that he had done nothing wrong and that he had not shot Mrs. Stevens. And this really frustrated Detective Glover. So he tried the whole well, I'll just build some rapport with him. So he started talking about things he did bad as a teen, trying to build a little, camaraderie. And Brenton told him he had never done anything bad and he had never had any dealings with the police.
Good kid.
And that is when Glover said, "You're lying." And I've already given you this quote. "You're lying. It's N-words like you that make me mad these days." So then this is when he said, "I think you threw that purse in the woods." And you might have been wondering, why would he say that if he knew there was no purse in the woods? He said that because he wanted an excuse to take Brenton out to the woods to beat him up. So he said, "I think you threw the purse and the gun in the woods, and you're going to go out and show me where it is." So he and a few other officers went out, and the other officers purposely stayed by the car and by the road line so they could create plausible deniability, while Glover took, handcuffed with a waist chain, poor little Brenton Butler deep, deep, deep into the woods, supposedly to look for the purse and the gun. They had no flashlight. It was getting dark. There was no searching. They waited. They walked a long ways until they were out of earshot. And then Detective Glover said, he said, "You did this." And then he punched the kid 3 times, and bruises would show this. He was punched in the stomach, and then he had bruises on his stomach and on his sternum, right at the lower part of his chest. And he had a giant welt on his face.
I mean, a
15-year-old child.
Grown man.
Yeah.
Doing this to a child, it's so disgusting.
And then when they got back to the police station after this, Detective Darnell took him inside and he wrote the confession. He said, "I'm going to write it for you." And Brenton Butler was hesitating to sign it. Darnell looked at his gun and Brenton said, "What are you going to do? Shoot me?" And Darnell said, "You guessed right." And then he said, "Actually, for every 10 seconds that passed, I'm going to hit you." So Brenton waited 10 seconds and Darnell punched him in the face. Hit him twice in the left eye where he had already been punched by Officer Glover. And then Brenton signed because he didn't want to be punched again.
Oh my gosh, Nettie, I remember you telling me about this.
Isn't that awful?
Years ago. That's awful.
Was this recorded? Was this
So at this time, video recordings were not required. Audio recordings were supposedly required, but they were not
enforced,
handled. Or sometimes they would say an officer was listening in another room, but the officer wasn't always listening. So it was supposedly all monitored, but yeah.
I hate this.
So on the stand, under prosecution questioning, Glover denied everything. They asked, "Did you touch him in any other way than holding his belt?" "No, ma'am." "Did you hit him?" No, ma'am. Did you raise your voice? No, ma'am. Did you make any threats? No, ma'am. And then Patrick McGinnis stood up. And this is where you two sisters are going to be reading. Emily is Patrick McGinnis. And Haley, you are Detective Harris.
Okay.
And what you're about to hear is Patrick McGinnis cross-examining Detective Harris on the stand. It's kind of cool.
Oh, I'm the bad guy.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my voice. I am the good guy, Patrick McGinnis.
Okay.
Ready? So you have this young fellow in there and you're asking him questions and he's telling you, I was home and I had yogurt and I did these things, right?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't it be relatively simple to go out and ask his parents, was he home?
Yes, sir.
Did you do that?
No, I didn't.
Well, you do a thorough, competent, meticulous investigation, right?
I try to. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't it be thorough and competent and meticulous to just drive out there and pick up the phone and say, can you tell me what your son's activities were today? If you saw him, when you saw him, what was he wearing? Could you have done that?
Yes, sir. I could have.
Why didn't you?
Well, I was in the process of interviewing him. I had a positive ID, and I had parents that told 2 detectives on my team that they had seen their son about 30 minutes prior to them arriving. He was in our custody at that time, and the parents had also said it wasn't unusual for Brenton to leave early in the morning without them seeing him.
You knew he didn't have a gun.
That's correct.
You knew he didn't have a purse.
That's correct.
You knew he didn't have any money.
That's correct.
You knew he didn't have a fisherman's hat, right?
That's all correct.
Did you ask Brenton, can I go search your house, your room?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you get a search warrant for his house?
No, sir, I did not.
You wanted to find a gun and purse and bloody clothes and everything else, right?
Yes, sir, that would have been nice.
So why not get a search warrant?
Well, we just said that we can get a search warrant.
Did you go out and knock on any of the neighbors' doors and say, excuse me, did you see Brenton Butler outside of his house between 6 and 8 this morning?
No, sir, I did not.
You didn't do that, May 7th?
No, sir.
Do you consider that thorough and competent?
Perhaps I should have done, sir.
Okay. So then McGinnis explains, this is one of my favorite parts, how he likes to handle witnesses that he doesn't respect and who he knows are lying. He really likes to embarrass them each time he lies. So now I'm going to have you guys read the next part. And this is to the cameraman he's not saying this in court, this next part. So now, back in court, this is the cross-examination of Detective Darnell with the most unlikable face. There was something about this guy, just a smugness that you slowly watched melt away. But I just sat there going, I do not like this man. He looked like a young teen boy cosplaying as a man.
I don't condone violence, but I think we call that kind of face punchable, right?
Yeah, but definitely a punchable
Yes.
face. I might condone it, just a one punch to Darnell.
Just this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is me as...
You're Patrick McGinnis again.
Patrick McGinnis. Did you tell Brenton Butler that you had sent policemen out to his house and his parents had been told where he was?
Yes, sir. As I say, the detectives went out to his house and spoke with his parents.
Well, spoke and tell are different words. Do you recall which?
No, sir. I don't recall which one was said.
On September 27th, when you were under oath, knowing the matters were being questioned about well in advance and giving the answer that you did, you were certainly trying to tell the truth at that time, right?
Yes, sir.
And since then, you just don't recollect, or did you forget, or what happened?
No, sir. I don't remember exactly how that part of the conversation with Brenton went. That's what I said.
So that part of the whole truth is lost to us, right?
No, sir. I...
Do you know how we can establish it?
No, sir.
Then it's lost, isn't it?
If you think so, sir.
Did you tell him that you had arranged for an attorney for him?
I said we could see if we could make arrangements for that.
Okay. Did you tell him that you would arrange an attorney for him?
I said we could make arrangements for that.
Okay. Did you make the first arrangement?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you pick up the phone?
No, sir.
You just told the young man at noon he had the right to an attorney, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you told him you had arranged for one, right?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't.
That's correct.
You didn't take the first step on making good on that promise?
I didn't promise, sir. I just made a statement to him, and no, I did not make a phone call.
When you say, we'll arrange an attorney for you, that's not a promise?
I don't make promises to individuals I'm interviewing.
I'm not sure I follow. If you say you're going to do something.
Yes, sir, but it wasn't said. It wasn't brought across as something I promise you I'll do.
So you only do it if you promise?
No, sir, you brought up the word promise.
Well, you didn't do it, right?
That's correct, sir.
Would you have done it if you'd said, I promise?
Well, I would have decided when it got to that point.
You knew that less than 100 yards from where you sat, there was a courtroom in operation with a public defender, right?
I'm not sure of the distance, but sure. There was a public trial, courtroom, attorneys were there, by the jail.
In retrospect, do you think perhaps you could have been more thorough and more competent in the investigation?
Perhaps, sir. It's always good to self-judge yourself to make sure you do a better job next time.
All right. So you heard it. Less than 100 yards away, there was a public defender, and Detective Harris never bothered to try to get someone to come in and talk to Brenton Butler. That was a really fun part of the documentary, just watching Patrick McGinnis look at him out of the top lids of his eyes, kind of like he'd be looking down and his eyes would go up and you just knew like he was out for blood. And just watching Darnell get increasingly uncomfortable.
Good.
And I love that. So you only do it if you promise? This is such a great part.
Do you need a pinky swears?
Do you need we were thinking the same thing, Haley. You guys, that's funny. Okay. So now, as you know, defendants do not have to take the stand. They are allowed to sit and just let other people testify. But Brenton Butler decided he wanted to take the stand. So Anne Fennell explained her reasoning simply. The only way to put Brenton's injuries in context and to explain how they got there, his bruises on his stomach, bruises on his sternum, bruise on his cheek, was for Brenton to explain it himself. So she felt like it was worth putting him on the stand. And I think she probably also felt that the prosecution's attorney, she really was this unlikable lady, and the jury was not going to take kindly to her harassing a 15-year-old with his family filling up half of the court. So I think that they knew that they were going to be pretty safe there. Also, they believed in his innocence. So he told the jury that when Glover first walked in, so remember Detective Glover is the Nepo baby with a badge, that Glover started talking about sports. Now, I want to say Glover told the other detectives that Brenton rushed into his arms, hugged him, and said, "I'm so glad to see you."
What?
That is what Glover said happened. That is not what happened. Brenton is not a hugger. His mom was like, no, Brenton would never do that. He's not a hugger. He's also really shy and keeps to himself. That doesn't sound like him at all. So Glover first walked in, started talking about sports. He was being nice. Then suddenly everything changed. Glover used a racial slur, started poking Brenton in the chest with his finger, saying, "I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you." And then he hit him in the chest with his fist. So first he was poking him, and then he hit him in the chest. And Brenton demonstrates it on the stand. And Fennell asks, and he's like, "Poking how? Poke yourself." And he does it. It's really quite effective. He gave Brenton a scenario. "Hey, you accidentally shot the lady. You ran and threw the gun in the purse in the woods." Brenton said, "No, sir. I had nothing to do with that." Then, in the woods, Glover hit him in the stomach. Brenton fell to his knees. He told Glover, "I can't help you. I don't know anything about a gun or a purse." Glover pulls him back to his feet, punches him again. He falls to his knees again. He was crying. Glover said, "You look pathetic." He pulled Brenton up by his shirt and punched him in the left eye. Back at the jail, back inside, Darnell wrote out the confession himself and told Brenton what happened, and then looked at his holster. And then I already told you this part where he said, "What are you going to do? Shoot me?" And then, threatened to punch him every 10 seconds. But hearing Brenton testify to it on the stand was really powerful. So then Anne asks Anne Fennell, "Now, Brent," she calls him Brent, "did you shoot the lady, Mrs. Stevens, at the Ramada Inn on the morning of May 7th? "No, ma'am." "Were you at the Ramada Inn on the morning of May 7th? "No, ma'am. Never been there." Then Melissa Butler takes the stand. They decided they wanted to close it with the mom. And she is such a beautiful, classy lady. Like, it was a skill, definitely. It was like a planned skill. Like, she was going to You can't look at this lady and think she's lying or feel anything but just like this motherly love and feel affection for her. So they called Brenton's mother, and her name's Melissa Butler, and she took the oath and told the courtroom her son's ordinary Sunday morning how she checked on him. She said she was always up early. She got up, immediately walked to Brenton's room, checked on him. He was sitting on the bed with his back to her. And she then saw him later in the foyer. And then she said the police came to the door later. Now, this was after Brenton had left to go to Blockbuster. The police came to the door and said, hey, can we talk to your son, Brenton, about some break-ins? So the police didn't even say, hey, we've got your son down at the station. We're holding him for questioning.
Disgusting.
But that's when she started to realize, she's like, well, my son's not here. You could talk to him if he was here, but he's not here. And then she realized, gosh, he's been gone for a while. This isn't normal. Brenton, was free to leave when he wanted, but he never was gone for long. She said that she called his friend, Sean. Sean said no, he hadn't talked to Brenton. And at that moment, she knew something had happened to her son. She was eventually able to speak to Brenton that night. They didn't even tell them where he was until that night.
Oh, and he didn't even get a phone call then.
I think
he would have called his home.
I think he called her eventually that evening after he'd signed the confession paper. He called and he said...
So they didn't give him a phone call at the beginning?
When they should have.
They didn't give him a phone call. They didn't give him an attorney when they kept saying they would. Oh, it is. So he called her and he said, Mom, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail because they made me sign this paper. She told him to pray and hold on, that his dad and she would do anything to get him out, even mortgage the house. And then McGinnis asked her, again on the redirect, is there any question in your mind that your son was home between 7 and 9? And she said, no question. I know my son was home. So, the trial wasn't super long. The documentary does this this picture of McGinnis the night before deliberations. And he said he'll go to sleep around 10 p.m. and wake up at 2:30 to work on his notes. And then he says, and I quote, this jury tomorrow could well come back against me. When I say against me, I take it personally. The man, or boy in this case, who will suffer is Brenton Butler. He could well suffer with a loss of liberty for the rest of his life, and this is a very frightening thing. I believe in my heart of hearts that he is innocent. I am not allowed to say that to the jury. I can tell them the evidence shows that, and if they disagree, I don't know what I'll do. This is not a loss I'll be able to take easily. And in the documentary, he's clearly emotional. And then it cuts to the Butler family the night before, and they're all together, and they're praying, and they're with Brenton at the jail, and Brenton's father tells him, we have our trust in the Lord, and the Lord don't make mistakes, and the Lord's going to be in that courtroom, and when you are set free, you're going to talk about some hallelujah good time.
Oh.
And Brenton was smiling. You could just see this big hopeful smile on his face, before he said goodbye to his parents. Then, closing arguments. The next day, the prosecution just basically said what they said in opening. Mr. Stevens identified Brenton Butler as the shooter. Brenton was in front of him for 4 to 5 seconds, and that's a long time when a man's holding a gun in your face. That's long enough to identify someone properly. She also called the allegations of police brutality a conspiracy worthy of Oliver Stone. And she said that the eyewitness identification alone proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. She then told the jury, if you actually believe that the police are capable of all of this conspiracy and that they physically threatened this boy and didn't do a proper investigation, then I urge you to call the FBI, call the state attorney's office, call all of the authorities, because that would be a miscarriage of justice, but it just simply did not happen. She just kind of made it seem unbelievable that police would ever be dishonest.
Ugh.
Now, McGinnis opens up with a Winston Churchill statement. The quality of a nation's civilization can be measured by the methods its police use in enforcement of criminal laws. I suggest to you by that yardstick, we're in deep trouble. Then he referenced Casablanca. Round up the usual suspects. What the police did, though, he said, was they went looking for black people. And 2.5 hours after the shooting, they found a 15-year-old boy on his way to get a job. A young man who worked, who paid for his own clothes and his own CDs, who, the state would have the jury believe, got up that morning, had his yogurt, decided to go kill somebody, killed them, came home, fed the dog. Somebody who has never, in his lifetime, been seen by anybody with a gun. Then he returned to the Nautica shirt. The gun would have had to be at chest height to achieve the angle into Miss Stevens, into where she was shot on the bridge of her nose. Would have had to be at chest height, 2.5 feet. The logo could not be missed from 2.5 feet with the gun sitting there. Mr. Stevens would have seen the logo. He pointed out that Glover was right-handed and that when a right-handed man hits someone he's facing, he connects with the left side. Brenton's injuries were on the left eye. And then McGinnis closed with the words that should have haunted every person in that room. There is still a man out there. That man is 20 to 25 years of age. He is 6 feet or taller. He still has a functioning gun. And because no diligent effort was made in this investigation, likely some other citizen will come to harm because the work wasn't done when it should have been done. The jury only deliberated for 45 minutes before they came back with the first count, 2 counts. First count, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Oh, good.
The courtroom erupts in celebration. Brenton's family, just as promised, were praising the Lord and shouting hallelujah, but the judge immediately silenced them, and you can see them trying so hard to contain their joy. He was like, you got to settle down while we hear the rest of it. And they're sitting there, squeezing each other's hands. And then count 2, not guilty.
Oh, good.
Brenton Butler was going home just before Thanksgiving. This was November 21st in 2000.
So how long was he held? When did that happen? Sorry.
May to November.
Oh my gosh.
May to November.
Oh,
That poor
awful.
kid.
6 months. 6 months
So
in prison.
he missed the first quarter of his sophomore year.
He missed
The
just
first
pure
semester.
Trauma. And
Yes.
he was like,
Just traumatized.
Trauma.
Ugh.
So, now you might be wondering about that unsolved case. Did the police investigate further and try to find out who the actual shooter was?
No.
No, but guess who did? Our hero,
McGinnis.
Patrick McGinnis. So, at the very end of the documentary, there's a news broadcast that says the person who may have solved this crime, this is a broadcaster, doesn't wear a badge or carry a gun. It was a lawyer whose salary we as taxpayers have to pay, someone who never gave up. So in the first week of January of 2001, McGinnis received a tip from a client who had been in a cell with a man named Juan Curtis. Curtis had admitted to being the shooter. He said he shot Mary Ann Stevens in the face because she had thrown a cup of coffee on him during the robbery, which James never reported
Whoa.
that happened. But he said he didn't intend to shoot her, but it was a cup of hot coffee and he had a startle response.
Oh, so he squeezed the trigger.
And that's why
Yes.
that was my first question, is that I suspected that he did not intend to kill her if he actually just threw the purse away. You know,
Yes,
that's
I think
the
he-
act of somebody who was panicking. Things didn't go the way he wanted them to.
Yep. Now,
Oh, still awful.
So awful.
the pocketbook was retrieved. They had it. Remember, they had it from the day before, processed for fingerprints. A print was found and it belonged to Juan Curtis. So he was charged with murder and armed robbery.
Oh, my goodness.
Also, he had a co-assailant. So the man that
that was like
James
100.
saw 150 feet away and the man that stepped in front of them were 2 different men. So that's how much we can rely on James Stevens' testimony. And I really do feel for him, but he really screwed Brenton Butler over
Yeah.
with
Because,
just deciding all Black men look the same.
Because he and his wife were victims, and then he victimized a 15-year-old boy.
Yes.
So, and if they had just processed, like the day they had that billfold, they could have processed the fingerprint and
Yes.
found him that week.
They didn't
They
do a
could have
thing.
found Juan Curtis.
Yeah, they didn't do a thing. They could have questioned their other people in jail, saying, "Hey, do you know anyone?" There were so many things they could have done.
So
they
what
didn't
did
even
they-
knock door to door in the Ramada to see if anyone heard or saw something.
Do you know what they got Juan Curtis on? Because he was in jail, apparently, right? What did they get him on?
I don't know. I think it was drugs because it said that he that morning wanted a score. He was going to rob someone, so he and his friend were out driving around, and I just don't have the friend's name in here for some reason.
They just wanted
who
to
was
get-
also charged, but was not the shooter, so was charged with robbery or conspiracy to commit robbery or something other
Right.
than murder. But he and his friend had done cocaine all night. They were starting to wear down, so they started looking for a target, and they just saw that Ramada pulled into the parking lot and saw James and Marianne walking and saw her purse and just parked their car, got out, and robbed them. And Marianne didn't do anything wrong. My instinct would be to throw coffee on someone too. But it's interesting to me that James wouldn't say that happened.
Mm-hmm. Because
he might not have remembered because it was quick. It's like coffee trigger, you know.
He probably didn't want there to be any fault because there's always victim blaming. There's always that thought like, oh, no, you shouldn't throw coffee on somebody with a gun or whatever. You know what I mean? There's always that thing where people are like try to pinpoint where
the victim went
wrong.
When it's like, hey, don't rob people.
Right, exactly. No, it's that, but it's just that gross human nature that we are fighting all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what punishments or charges do you think that the police and the detectives in this case faced due to all of this like mishandling?
Nothing.
Correct, Haley. None.
Luckily, the public embarrassment of the documentary was probably like the only, I mean, not luckily, but like that seems like that's the only justice that was served.
Detective Glover did on his own quit his job. And that was largely due to the backlash that he received after the documentary.
Good.
And I believe that the other officers also ended up quitting and finding other lines of work, but they never were. No charges were pressed, no punishments, no
assault against Detective Glover.
Ugh. Nothing, like no
internal pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like no,
nothing.
You know what? That is such a powerful lesson, though. Like that we, as like constituents and you know people, like there is power in like using your voice and making your disbelief and your disgust heard and known, and we can't be quiet. We have to, you know, like
speak
say
up.
how. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and those officers never apologized to Brenton or his family, but Sheriff Nat Glover, Detective Glover's father, and State Attorney Harry Shorstein issued public apologies to Brenton Butler for having him arrested and keeping him in jail for 6 months. And the 3 detectives were removed from the homicide division, but didn't receive any pay cuts and remained on the force.
Ew.
Yeah.
That's awful.
The Butler family filed a civil lawsuit for $8.5 million, and they ended up eventually settling for $750,000. And they explained that they didn't want to drag it on, that they felt like they probably could have actually like drug it on and gotten more, but they just wanted to be done with it and move on with their life.
Right.
Now, since this time, there's many things have changed. So a lot of like legacy laws kind of have gone into place because of this case. The first is mandatory video recording. So the Jackson Sheriff's Office had actually purchased recording equipment before this case, but hadn't set it up, and they chose not to use it.
Jeez.
So after the grand jury investigation exposed what happened in that soundproof room, by the way, the soundproof room where they questioned that kid, they said, we need to be videotaping, especially interviews with juvenile suspects. And then that was later expanded to all felony suspects. So it was originally just juveniles, and now it's all felony suspects. And now I think it's even more, because now it's like body cam. Like we have cameras on.
Like a police force, especially with how important their jobs are.
Yes.
I think having that accountability is extra important.
I think so too.
To make sure everything is correct.
Also, juvenile protections were put in place. This case highlighted the dangers of interrogating minors without a parent, guardian, or legal counsel present. Jacksonville implemented stricter procedural safeguards for juvenile questioning as a direct result of this case.
Good.
Also, statewide eyewitness ID reform. The Butler wrongful arrest, built highly on the identification by a traumatized victim, served as a catalyst for a broader criminal justice reform in Florida, contributing directly to the creation of Florida's Innocence Commission, which is a task force dedicated to improving eyewitness identification standards statewide.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's it. Where are they now? Ann Fennell and Patrick McGinnis in 2008 left the public defense office.
Did they get married?
No, they opened up a public defender's office together. And Anne went on to famously defend Casey Anthony pro bono. And that, my sisters, is a story for another day, because I know we all have strong feelings about this. But
Yeah.
Anne Fennell's statement about it, I thought, was lovely and showed what a good person she is and how much she sees that media does to the cases that we consume, and how really justice and the truth is what we are in pursuit of, not what makes the best story. She is in no way said that she thought Casey Anthony was innocent, but she spoke very, very well about it. So she will go towards cases that nobody else wants to touch. And you have to have special qualifications to be a homicide, like a public defender who defends homicides. And she and Patrick McGinnis were two of like the only qualified people to do it.
Wow.
Like you can't, I believe, like that's like why with the Brian Koberger case, it had to be that particular attorney, because she was one of the few that were actually could do a capital murder case.
Oh,
I don't know if it changes state by state, but yeah, it's like you have to be specially trained to do capital.
I think that's great. I think that having that extra training, I think that's smart to have that be required.
And even people that we perceive as a total villain, like, Casey Anthony or anybody else, like they still deserve the right to a fair trial, and they deserve the right to representation that will do their best to defend them,
Absolutely right. So Brenton Butler lives a private life with his family. He's believed to still be in Jacksonville, Florida. He wrote a book called They Said It Was Murder in 2004, and then he's just kind of tried to stay out of the spotlight. And I just hope he's well and hope he knows that people are still inspired by his story and people are still telling his story and are, that we still admire his strength and resilience and recognize like the atrocity and of what was done to him.
Yeah.
Finally, Patrick McGinnis died in March of 2021 from a rare form of blood cancer. And he was the coolest lawyer ever. He also put himself through college by working for a moving company. And he continued to help all of his friends and family move anytime anyone he knew was moving. He's like, I got the skills. I'm here. And on his obituary page, where people can contribute photos, there's a photo of Patrick McGinnis standing next to an empty moving truck, kind of gesturing that one of his friends posted, like where he had helped people move.
Cute.
Just like a good person.
Yeah.
So anyway, the legal world lost someone irreplaceable who was an advocate for people who had been wronged and wasn't afraid to stand up to the system. So that's pretty much it.
Wow, Nettie.
Yeah.
I did not know that whole story. I just remember you telling me that part about every 10 seconds that goes by, I'm going to punch you in the face until you confess.
Yes. I was shocked when I watched that the first time. And then I watched it again and I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
Like you just can't. Also, and this is a thing that happened in the court, like in the courtroom, when McGinnis was questioning Darnell, and Darnell's the one that wrote out the confession for him. Every line of the confession, McGinnis would read. And then he would say to Darnell, So Brenton said this word, and Darnell would go, no, I mean, he didn't say those exact words. Like, we wrote it together. And then they found out Detective Harris was the one that was listening to it. He questioned Detective Harris and said, did you hear Brenton Butler say this? Went through each line of the confession. Detective Harris thankfully answered honestly, no, I didn't hear that. No, he didn't say that. No, I didn't hear him say that.
Gosh.
And I think he had to answer honestly because I think that there was a recording.
Right.
An audio recording of it.
Right. Well, and like maybe he kind of saw the writing on the wall of like how good these lawyers were. And he was like, I better not lie on the stand.
Yeah. So that's the story of the case of Brenton Butler, made famous by the documentary, Oscar-winning documentary, Murder on a Sunday Morning.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It is available on a YouTube. And I think Amazon Prime.
I think I'll have to watch that.
And it's
that
good.
was so good, Nettie.
You did
I'd
so
never
good,
heard of
Nettie.
that case.
It's
That
really
was so powerful.
it's good because there's no voiceover. Like the entire documentary, you actually feel like you're in the courtroom with these people. There's not a part where it's like, the narrator stepping out like to do voiceover narration.
Just being like, you might wonder how we got here today.
Yeah.
No. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that style either, but I do love those where you feel like you're immersed and you were there, kind of,
Yeah, I recommend it if you're ever bored for a solid hour and a half, and also just seeing Brenton, just kid. He's just such a kid. You just can't, when you see him on the documentary, you realize just like what a child he is, and just the reality of like his parents and their worry, and it just is a big deal. I think that the police are like, well, we got someone for it. A kid off the streets. Even like, I wonder if there's a justification in their mind. Like, well, this kid probably would have turned to a life of crime anyway. Like, just the racial profiling that that people can do and just justify somehow in their minds that it's okay. Oh, it's disgusting. But
disgusting. Yeah.
Anyways, yes, thanks for listening.
You did such a good job telling that.
Thank you.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You want to take us out of me?
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. Again, this is the Spooky Darlings. And please, if you are interested, follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the Spooky Darlings podcast. We also are on YouTube. We currently don't have our pictures on YouTube, but we just have, our episodes up so you can listen to them there. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, or just want to tell us something about your life, email us at thespookydarlings@gmail.com. And once again, thanks for listening. Goodbye.
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 5 stars.